Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you back to our kind of second episode of our Tailboard Talk, our checking in with GFR. If you saw our previous session, you'll know that my name is Dr. Megan Lax. I'm a faculty provider at ECU Family Medicine, and we have a collaboration to work with GFR right now, but because of all the COVID precautions, we're not able to meet with you all face-to-face. So this is our attempt at trying to connect with you all and kind of provide some resources and support during this time, even though we're not able to be there at the stations with you. So today, we are going to talk a little bit about stress and anxiety. So everybody knows what stress and anxiety are because this is a normal part of being a human. And so regardless of kind of what job you do, everybody has experienced some level of stress or anxiety throughout their life because it's just part of living. But really we kind of define anxiety as this kind of sense of uneasiness or distress or feeling dread about a certain situation, and kind of something that could kind of make you feel on edge a little bit. We also define it as kind of a mental and physical reaction to a perceived threat. This is going to be really important as we start to talk about fight or flight responses and our body's stress response, that this isn't just kind of a mental reaction to something that's going on in our lives, but it's also very physiological. And the idea of a perceived threat versus an actual real kind of identified threat is also very important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on today. So obviously in small doses, stress and our kind of anxiety and stress response is really helpful. It's a normal reaction meant to protect us from danger. So it helps us stay alert and aware of our surroundings. You all know that better than anybody, that kind of being vigilant of your surroundings and those kinds of things are very important. So our body's stress response is extremely important in kind of protecting us. What can happen though sometimes is that our body activates a stress response when there's not a real risk to our well-being. And so those are the times that we're kind of talking about today, is making sure that we have some coping skills in place so that if we do notice that we're feeling stress and anxiety in situations where we're likely safe, maybe we need to do some kind of exercises to kind of help relax our body. So just in general, we've talked about anxiety in some of our other classes. But just in general, about 40% of Americans meet criteria for an anxiety disorder. About a third of adults suffering from anxiety disorder receive treatment, and only about 1/5 of teenagers. And so it's really important to keep in mind that we notice pretty significant anxiety in children and adolescents and young adults all the way through the lifespan. And so this is something that can impact a lot of different people. And so it's always helpful, whether it's for yourself or for someone that you care about or someone that you work with, to kind of learn some kind of coping skills for anxiety because it is so common. So this is a picture that is not going to be surprising to most of you. Everybody has heard of fight or flight at some point, usually in their lives. And so when we talk about our body's stress response, this is what we're talking about. So typically when we're in a relaxed state or a parasympathetic state, we are relaxed, we're calm, we're not on edge, we have slow and deep breathing, our heart rate is more normal, we're able to digest food, all of those kinds of things are happening really well when we are in a relaxed state. However, if we are exposed to some type of threat, whether it's real or not, our body can go into a fight or flight kind of defense. And so during that time, we have increased alertness. Our breathing is a lot more rapid and shallow. We have accelerated heart rate. We're not digesting food. Like lots of different systems and organs in our bodies are changing because if a grizzly bear were to walk in my house right now, I don't need to be in a rest and digest state. I need to be in a fight or flight state. I need to get to safety as quickly as possible, and my body is going to respond to get me there. So what can happen though sometimes with stress and anxiety is our body can be activated into this fight or flight mode when we don't need it to. And so it's really important that we learn skills to be able to recognize if we are indeed experiencing a threat, or if this is just anxiety and stress and we need to help our body calm down to get back into rest and digest mode. So for example, if you think about, for the most part, if you're sleeping in your bed in the middle of the night and you hear a crash coming from your kitchen, you're going to jump and you're going to be on high alert, and your fight or flight responses are going to kick in because you think there's a danger in your home, and you're going to do whatever you have to kind of either see what the problem is or kind of see what's going on in your home. But when you walk out and you realize that the cat knocked over a plate and broke it, our bodies typically quickly go back to homeostasis because they recognize that the threat is gone. And so that is a kind of positive way that we kind of use our fight or flight kind of responses. But again, what can happen is sometimes when we have a lot of stress and anxiety and we're not coping well with it, we can be living in fight or flight a lot. And that can be really damaging on our body and our system. So today we're just going to talk about some coping skills that might be helpful to you when you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling a little stressed or anxious. So just common symptoms when we talk about anxiety and stress in general. So if you notice any kind of excessive worry about future events, so this could be social situations, so it could be crowds, it could be things going on at work, it could be being separated from certain people or places, it could be even worrying about having difficult conversations with people. All of these things can be kind of symptoms if you're worried about them and they haven't occurred yet. Also, noticing physiological reactions that are associated with worry or stress. And so we've talked about some of these things already with our fight or flight response, but if we notice increased heart racing, sweaty palms, heavy breathing, headaches, upset stomach, there are a lot of different physiological changes that can happen in our body when we're feeling stressed. Also, of course, sleep disturbances. So if we're noticing an increase in insomnia or nightmares or anything like that, that can be an indication that maybe we have some stress or anxiety going on in our lives. And then just general signs of distress that you might notice in yourself or someone that you care about. So if you notice a neglect of personal hygiene, weight changes, a decline in their performance at work or at school, changes in their mood, of course, and then maybe even withdrawal from activities, people. These could all be indications either for yourself or someone else that there might be some stress or anxiety going on that might need to be better dealt with or managed. So when we start talking about kind of prevention and coping, this is kind of the bulk of what we want to talk about today, is just kind of giving you all some tools for your toolbox to kind of better manage when you are feeling on edge, because this happens to all of us. Whether you have an anxiety disorder or not, we all have moments of feeling stressed and anxious. So these tools can really be helpful for everybody. So psychoeducation is a key component for managing symptoms. So all that means is education about anxiety, education about fight or flight, education about triggers, and all kinds of things like that can be really helpful first to help us identify and recognize what's causing our anxiety or our stress if there are kind of common themes throughout our life. So for example, do you notice that you're more stressed at home or at work, or maybe when you're driving in the car? Maybe it's around certain people or places, maybe at certain times of day. So maybe in the evening, you notice that you're a little more on edge than throughout the day. So just recognizing patterns of when you're feeling most stressed can be really helpful. And then also kind of keeping an eye on how your body's responding. We've talked a lot about these physiological responses to anxiety and to stress. So kind of keeping an eye on your kind of stress thermometer, or like any type of gauge. If you think of your stress level from 1 to 10, 1 being super relaxed and calm and 10 being really on the verge of a panic attack, really being able to identify when you're starting to creep up that temperature gauge so that you can do some type of intervention and prevent yourself from going into maybe fight or flight or a panic attack or something like that. So that's when it'd be really helpful to be able to use some of the tools we're going to talk about today when you start to notice that you're feeling a little bit on edge, whether it's noticing an increased heart rate or whatever is happening within your body, that you can say, okay, I need to do some breathing exercises or do something to kind of bring myself back to homeostasis so that my body doesn't continue to kind of get worked up. Also, just remembering the idea about these real versus perceived dangers, right? So if we're having a stress response to something that's going on, when there's no danger around us, we really can kind of use some techniques and positive self-talk to help reduce our stress, to kind of hopefully help mitigate any kind of increased stress response. And so saying things to yourself like, I'm safe, I'm not in danger, my body is just responding to stress, I need to breathe to relax, those kinds of things that you can say to yourself to help your body kind of calm down and realize that there is no threat to your life. The last kind of thing that we talk about with prevention is making sure that we're facing stressors rather than avoiding it. So a lot of times when we're anxious about something, whether it's a conversation with a partner or a parent or someone at work or some other task that we're supposed to do that's really causing us a lot of anxiety and stress, we avoid it because we don't want to deal with it. But if there's nothing else you take away from today, I want you to remember that avoidance only grows anxiety. Because what happens is when you're worried about something and you don't address it head on, what you're doing is you're telling yourself that you don't have the tools to address it. So the next time it comes up, your body responds in a negative way because you've already kind of taught it that it doesn't have the tools to be able to cope with that stressor. So the best thing that we can do when something is causing us stress or is causing us anxiety, rather than avoid it, we've really got to expose ourselves to it, talk about it, whatever the case is, but just kind of keep in mind that avoiding whatever is bothering you usually only increases stress and anxiety over the long term. So that's kind of an important key factor that we want to talk about. So getting kind of into actual treatment, so if we're feeling stressed or we're feeling anxious, what are some things that we do? So CBT, you've probably heard of this before. It's a really common cognitive strategy. There's a lot of evidence for this. This is kind of if you were going to therapy for anxiety, this is something that you would probably talk about with your clinician. And so as you can see here, kind of going through this model, basically what it means is that something can happen and our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors are all connected. So the idea behind CBT is that if we change our thoughts, we can change our feelings and change our behaviors and therefore reduce our anxiety or our stress. So if you can see here, I'll go through it with you because it might be a little blurry for you. Something happens, anything, it could be anything. So for this example, it's a coworker who you're usually friendly with has walked past you in the hallway and they didn't say hello. That's it. That's as simple as it is. It's nothing major, nothing kind of, traumatic, but someone walks by you who you usually talk to and they don't say anything. So you could have a thought, you interpret the situation, and interpretations aren't always accurate, right? So you could think, what did I do wrong? Why is this person mad at me? Which would lead you to feel hurt or offended, or maybe even angry by it. And then your behavior, then you would respond to that by maybe kind of fixating on it all day and not being able to stop thinking about it. And maybe if you saw that person later in the day, you kind of acted coldly toward them, okay? So that could be one way that we think about one situation that can happen and how our thoughts impact our feelings, which then impact our behavior, right? It's all kind of connected to each other. So our idea in CBT is to kind of take those situations and to make sure we're challenging any thoughts that aren't helpful. So instead of thinking, what did I do wrong? Why is that person mad at me? We could think, wow, that person didn't notice me. They must have a lot on their mind. They have a lot going on. So instead of feeling hurt and offended, we feel neutral. We're not fazed by it because we don't think we did anything wrong. We just think maybe there's a lot going on in that person's life. So then instead of kind of ruminating on it all day and acting cold towards that person later on in the day, you wouldn't think about it anymore. And so the next time you saw them, you would kind of react as you normally would and act warm and kind of talk to the coworker as usual. So you can see it's kind of very kind of simple when we lay it out, but it's really just the idea that the way that you think about or interpret a situation has the ability to impact how you feel, which then impacts your behavior towards that person or situation. And so how we can kind of alter our thoughts to make sure that they are, that we're not kind of overreacting or it's not impacting our behavior and our relationships in a negative way. So kind of going on with that, another kind of strategy, cognitive strategy, with CBT is really kind of identifying and learning these unhealthy thinking patterns. So when you run into somebody and kind of making an interpretation about their behavior, That's not a healthy kind of thinking pattern, because it can lead to probably a lot of conflict in your life and avoidance. And so another kind of alternative thing that we can do is really kind of break down and think about things that cause anxiety. So if you can think about something in your life that makes you nervous, it could be giving a speech in this example, or having a conversation with a loved one, or doing something specific at work. Whatever it is that kind of you can think of that would cause you kind of some stress if someone asked you to do it, would be a good kind of thing to look at in this type of scenario. So for this example, someone's nervous about giving a speech. So what we ask you to do is write down the worst outcome, the best outcome, and then what's likely is usually kind of somewhere in the middle there. So the worst outcome, if you were nervous about giving a speech, could be that you forget the words and everyone laughs at you for eternity. The best outcome might be that it goes smoothly and everyone will clap. What's likely is that you might be nervous and stumble over some of your words, but you'll get through it and you'll move on and everything will be fine. But when we fixate on the worst outcome, which is usually what happens when we're anxious or under a lot of stress, it can impact our behavior, right? And it can make us avoid ever giving speeches. So then we ask you to really think about, even if that worst outcome were to come true, is it really that big of a deal in a week or a month from now or even a year from now? Really getting you to think through what is kind of causing your anxiety and stress. Then the last part of this kind of exercise is writing down what's irrational versus rational, right? So your irrational thought is, I'm going to forget everything about my speech and never live it down. No one will ever forget about this, and this will be all I'm known for the rest of my life. That's pretty irrational, but that's what anxiety and stress make us think. They make us think in extremes like that. So the rational thought to that would be, even if my speech is just okay, everyone's going to forget about it and move on and kind of be talking about something else. So these are just some examples of, if you notice that you have a lot of anxiety and stress throughout your daily life, these are some strategies that can be helpful to you. And of course, I can talk with you more in depth if you have specific questions about any of these things to kind of make it more applicable to you or someone that you care about. So another strategy in terms of kind of breathing exercises, because we talked a lot about the stress response. And so obviously, if our body is reacting in fight or flight and there's no threat, we need to train our body to get back into a relaxed state. One of the best ways we can do that is by controlling our breathing. And it sounds very simple, but it's very effective. So breathing helps with immediate relief. There are lots of different terms for this. That's why I said controlled, because we could say deep breathing, we could say slow breathing, we could say belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. But really what we're talking about is just being in control of your breath. So what it does is it helps with immediate relief. And so what's better than when you're feeling anxious and on edge than having something that can kind of bring you back to center really quickly. Deep, slow breaths actually stimulate the vagus nerve, which lowers our stress response. It's associated with fight or flight mechanisms. And so that's kind of the mechanics in our body of how that's working for you. So when we talk about any type of controlled breathing, we're typically talking about kind of inhaling through your nose, pausing, and then exhaling through your mouth. And so it doesn't have to be super fancy. It is not, it's not a super complicated process, but it's really, really important. And so I did have a quick video to share with you all that I think can be helpful in kind of illustrating what this looks like. And let me see if I can pull this up for you all. And this is just going to be a few minutes, but will kind of help illustrate again the importance and kind of how easy this breath is.
Welcome to another segment of Fire Engineering's Training Minutes. My name is Rick George. We're going to talk about breathing in this segment. After the hypervigilant video, this is the important part, is the breathing. I'm going to show you 3 different breathing techniques. One is box breathing, the other one is belly breathing, and there's a hum technique. The box breathing is actually very simple. It is a square box, and we'll start with the 3 count. So you'll see the 3 counts right there, and it goes all the way around the box. The top of the box is the inhale. The right side of the box is hold, the bottom of the box is exhale, and the left side of the box is hold. So on a count of 3, we inhale, we hold for 3, we exhale for 3. We hold for 3, we inhale for 3, and we repeat. This is a technique that's used by the United States Navy SEALs BUD program. It's found to have homeostatic effects, which means it decreases blood pressure, respiratory rate, and heart rate, and which in turn helps you kind of align yourself and get back into the parasympathetic nervous system and away from the sympathetic nervous system under stressful events. The other technique is called belly breathing. Belly breathing is different. It's the one that I prefer, and the reason I prefer it is because it utilizes the diaphragm to expand your chest and your lungs as much as possible. So it's just like eating. When you eat, your belly sticks out. When you digest, your belly goes in. When you breathe in, your belly goes out. When you exhale, your belly goes in. But the chest hardly moves. Now, this is to be used when you find yourself out of breath, when you feel an anxiety attack coming on, when you feel panic coming on, if you're in the middle of a fire, something you're trying to catch your breath, or you're trying to calm yourself down. Belly breathing is perfect. And it doesn't have to be as pronounced either. Belly breathing has the exact same homeostatic effects as box breathing does. Breathing is used, that belly breathing is used by the United States Marine Corps snipers. They use that to slow their heart rate down so that they can shoot between heartbeats. Regardless, there's one more technique that's added to this, which is humming.
Okay, so as you can see, breathing doesn't have to be complicated, but it can be really, really impactful, especially in the moment. Let me get us back to where we were. Here we go. So again, kind of what he was talking about with belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, what that means is a lot of times if we say, can you take a deep breath for me? What we notice in people is they go, and so the reason that that's not helpful is because what we want to happen when we're doing kind of a deep, slow breath to kind of get our body back to homeostasis is that we want that diaphragm to drop so that our lungs can fill up with more oxygen. And so it's just more effective that way. And so really kind of practicing thinking about your breathing and slowing down and making sure that you're inhaling through your nose, count to 3, pause for a few seconds, and then exhaling out of your mouth is really, really important to kind of get your body again, kind of working back in kind of a not fight or flight kind of response, but in a more relaxed state. You'll find yourself being able to make better decisions that way. So this can happen at work. If you're in a stressful situation or on a stressful call and you notice like an increase in your heart rate, or you're starting to kind of feel sweaty or kind of on edge a little bit and you're not really sure what decision to make, if you're in that situation, that doing a coupled slow breaths will really allow oxygen to get back into your body, back into your brain, and you're able to kind of make more rational decisions at that point. So I really, really want you to encourage you to kind of utilize some of these breathing techniques because they're really effective, really quickly, and it's not something that you have to do for 10, 20, 30 minutes. But just a few minutes, maybe even kind of 10 rounds of these breathing in and out can be really, really effective and helpful if you're under a lot of duress. Another kind of strategy that we talk about, and this is something that will be more helpful maybe at night if you're having a hard time sleeping, or if you have a kind of a pause in your day where you're able to take a few minutes to yourself. This is called guided imagery or visualization or meditation. There are lots of different words for it. But basically what this does is it focuses your imagination to create calm images in your mind. It kind of provides a mental escape. And so these are really helpful for people who have a lot of racing thoughts or people who say, I can't turn my mind off. I can't stop thinking about things. And again, usually this happens at night when we lay down to try to go to sleep and our mind just doesn't shut off and we're not able to sleep because we're still thinking about things that we're worried about. So this can be a really helpful strategy for you because it's guided, meaning that someone is talking to you, telling you what to visualize. And so it can be really helpful to kind of listen to someone in a peaceful manner, kind of explain and describe different things that can be calming for you. And so YouTube is a really, really great resource for something like this. There are a lot of different places that you can kind of find some guided imagery scripts, but YouTube is always my go-to because most people are familiar with it and they're all free. And so I would encourage you, if this is something that piques your interest or something that you feel like could be helpful to you, especially if you feel like you're a really visual person, this could be really beneficial to you, to kind of help you relax at any time, whether you're stressed or not, but just a time that you want to kind of promote some relaxation. So if you're using YouTube, you can use any type of keyword. So I would suggest starting with either guided imagery or meditation or visualization, and then add whatever is happening at the moment. So it could be a problem with sleep, it could be anxiety, it could be stress, or it could just be that you want kind of a mental escape to the beach or to the forest or wherever kind of feels like a peaceful place for you. You just type those things into your search bar for YouTube and it will bring up lots of different responses for you. And so that can be a really helpful way to kind of meditate, that just takes a few minutes to kind of get a mental escape and kind of relax your mind and your body. So next we're going to talk about grounding exercises. So these are another kind of good exercise to use if you find yourself in a situation where you're having a lot of racing thoughts and you're not able to kind of calm your mind down. A lot of times with anxiety, what's happening is we're really worried about the future. And so we're not thinking about what's going on right now or how I'm feeling in the present moment because I'm so concerned about something that's going to be happening in the future. So what grounding does is exactly like it sounds, is it anchors you back into the present moment and what's going on. And so some ways that we can do that are very simple. So it could be if someone is feeling really on edge and is noticing a lot of racing thoughts, using cold water actually can be really helpful. So running it over your wrist or your hands, splashing on your face, those kinds of things that can kind of bring you back into the moment. Another really popular exercise is kind of a 5 senses exercise. Again, this is like breathing. These are tools that you can use anywhere. They're free and they're very simple and effective and quick. So this exercise, all you're going to do is think about your 5 senses and just walk yourself through them. Again, this is not magic. It's just something to kind of bring you out of your head and back into the present moment when you're feeling worried or anxious about something. So what you'll do is you'll just go through and notice 5 things that you see, and that can be anything around you. You could be sitting in an exam room. You could be sitting in an ambulance. You could be sitting at the hospital and you notice that you're having some increased anxiety. Just name 5 things that you see, 4 things that you feel. So this could be something outside. This could be the air conditioner on your face, kind of driving in the car. This could be kind of what your sweater or your shirt feels like against your skin, or even what your body weight feels like against the chair that you're sitting in, or sheets feel like on your bed. Then you'll go through things that you hear, things that you smell, and things that you taste. Taste can be a little bit trickier unless you just ate, but a lot of people like to put in like a mint or a piece of gum and kind of really focus on that taste, and that kind of really kind of anchors you back into the moment when you find yourself really kind of getting lost in your thoughts and in your head. So those are the main exercises that I wanted to talk with you guys about today, is just really focusing on your breathing and having controlled breathing. Obviously, that's good in any situation that you have heightened stress. It could be on the way to a call. It could be in the middle of a call. It could be at home. It could be driving home from shift if you had a long night, to kind of recenter yourself, kind of going back to your family. It could be at home when having an argument with someone in your family. It's a really good technique to just kind of calm your body back down so that you're not reacting out of that kind of fight or flight mode. And then we talked about doing some grounding exercises to kind of anchor you back into the present moment, and even some cognitive strategies that you can start to use to challenge negative or irrational thoughts that you might have. So these last 2 pieces of support I wanted to provide for you. This is a new app that just came out. The Center for National Center for PTSD actually is a really great resource for a lot of mental health resources. And everything that they do is evidence-based, so it's really, really good. There's a lot of evidence and support behind it. But this is a free app. It's developed specifically for different strategies related to the pandemic and social isolation and quarantine and things like that. And so it's a really, really good application. There's a lot of information on it. All of the exercises I talked with you about today are on this app, and they can kind of talk you through how to engage in those exercises, like the imagery or the breathing. There's really great things on this app. And like I said, it's free. It's really easy to use. I really, I found it useful. I've had a lot of patients find it useful. So I really wanted to talk with you guys about it and recommend it to you if you or someone in your life could benefit from it. It can also be helpful because it gives a lot of ideas for activities that you can do inside and outside with your family, if kind of your partner or your children, or even yourself are kind of getting bored right now with kind of being inside, now that we've kind of been under kind of some social distancing rules for about 8 weeks now. Again, there's ways to practice relaxation and other exercises, and you can also track your mood and anxiety and things like that over time. So it's a really helpful resource. That picture on the right is what the icon looks like if you search it in your app store. But again, that's just a free resource. It's available if you're interested. There's specific things on there to help you with sleep and all kinds of things. So again, just a really helpful resource during this time. And lastly, I wanted to share this information from DHHS. I have not used this resource, but it looks like an incredible one. And so if you all feel like you want to reach out and talk with someone about stress and specifically kind of related to being a first responder, this might be a really great resource for you. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware that this is out there too. So that is all I had for you all today. I hope that something I talked about can be helpful. I know that we all experience times of stress and anxiety, and so hopefully learning some different interesting kind of coping strategies for when we're feeling that way in the moment will be beneficial to you and helpful. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or want some more information about anything I shared today, please don't hesitate to email me. I'd love to talk with you and provide some more support for you. And I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of your families, and I look forward to when I will be able to work with you all again, face to face. So thank you for watching, and I hope you're well.